Hello, everybody, and welcome to Just a Minute Sports. My name is Casey Wright, and my guest today, well, we finally got him here. It took long enough. Mr. Luke Schneider, how you doing there, Luke?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about the new format, and it's going to be fun.
How do you like the new format? Do you like this little setting?
I like it just because you're more in control of everything. You're not really on a time clock. You can do your own editing, say what you want when you want, go as long as you want. So I think it's better for you and your creativity. So I'm excited.
And we've been getting a lot of good feedback from our last coffee talk with Anthony Travato. That was one of the things that we added to our show here, and the coffee talks have been taking off. Matter of fact, I had at least, and this is no joke, this isn't like a fake number, at least 10 people text me saying, hey, we really, really want to be on the coffee talk. Like, that is a genius idea. We like how calm and, just natural it is, and I think people get a little intimidated when they come on the actual show because they don't know about basketball, if they don't know about baseball, if they don't know about football, they're going to be like, okay, I don't really want to do that show because I don't really understand the topics. Now, do you think
Votto's going to beat anyone's going to beat Votto's number of F-bombs?
I don't think anybody will beat that number of F-bombs. Matter of fact, I don't think anybody.
You should have had a counter on the video.
Well, it was funny. It was me and him were talking about me editing the show, right?
Yeah.
And he said, we went through the first 5 minutes, and I already bleeped out a lot of them. And he said, I didn't curse that much. It calms down. No, he said it calms. But he said he was like, it calms down as I go on. And I'm like, Votto, I'm on the 15th minute right now, and I'm still putting them in. So anyway, we have a great show for you today. We have a lot of good topics. We actually have it's actually just all football today, honestly. NCAA and NFL, mainly because this weekend is a pretty big weekend for the NFL and for the NCAA with the National Championship. Before we get the show started, we'd like to remind you that Just a Minute Sports is sponsored by Enigmatic Producing Entertainment, both in the Orlando area and the entire East Coast. For more information, go on their website at engmtc.co or any social media platform at engmtcent. So, before we also get the show started, we'd like to talk about Luke's product, Cleat Clear, which is a new product that he's coming out soon. Take it away.
Yeah, so didn't know I was getting a plug today, but here's the product. Basically, I met an engineer in college, and we came up with this idea. I had it for probably 7 years now. Been working on it for the last 2-3 years pretty hard. Partnered up with some cool guys like Sean Kelly, who runs Jersey Champs. He's been written about in Forbes, etc. And then Alex Katz, he owns Stadium Custom Kicks. And together we're kind of launching this product at spring training this year, going to be used by a bunch of pro athletes and going to be available to order in March. So basically, quick rundown, cleans dirt off the bottom of your cleat, so you use it to clean the dirt off the cleat. And this side's measured to fit around metal baseball spikes. This side's fit to measure around plastic spikes like for football or soccer. So pretty excited about it. Finally get it off the ground and get a lot of cool people using it. Got to go to MLB Network this past week when I was up in the city for New Year's. So lots of traction and really excited about the future. So yeah, thanks for letting me talk about it.
Of course. And you're gonna see this everywhere. And unfortunately, I wish I had it in college because that was a huge problem, especially during the rain and rainy season down here. It's brutal to get the mud and muck out of your cleats. So please go check him out on social media. And his, I believe, is your website launched yet for it yet?
It's you can visit it, but it's not live yet.
All right, we'll put a picture right now, and then you'll check them out at Cleat Clear Designs, and then it's going to be a big product, especially starting down here and moving forward.
Yeah, cleatclear.com, Cleat Clear on Instagram.
So today in sports history, January 10th, 1982, NFC Championship, Candlestick Park, San Francisco 49ers beat the Dallas Cowboys in 28-27, known as the iconic catch game in NFL history when Dwight Clark made a fingertip catch for a touchdown with Joe Montana with 58 seconds remaining, in San Francisco went on to win one of many Super Bowls in that era. In 1986, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of the Los Angeles Lakers scored his 34,000th career point during the 124-102 win over the Indiana Pacers. He's the only NBA player to ever reach that milestone at that time, and he also remains the all-time leader at 38,387. One more basketball one for you. In 2003, the NBA announced Charlotte, North Carolina, awarded with an NBA expansion team known as the Charlotte Bobcats, which quickly changed, thanks to Michael Jordan, to the Charlotte Hornets in 2014. And unfortunately, they are still having more issues, especially with Kemba Walker already out the door after such a short amount of time.
They should have kept Adam Morrison. He was balling.
I like the Bobcats name, too. I don't know what people's beef with that was. I really like the Bobcats name. I don't know why they
I think it was
away.
more just they wanted to go back to the historic with the Hornets name, and so they could kind of rebrand the New Orleans franchise.
That's fair. So our first topic today, let's get it underway. The NFL playoffs are obviously going on. Tomorrow we're going to have 2 games. Sunday we'll have 2 more, and then we'll see the 4 teams that are going to be left. But let's go back to the wild card very briefly, tell you what happened there. In the AFC, the Texans took care of the Bills in their first time in the playoffs. It seemed like a decade. They beat them in overtime 22-19 in a game where Josh Allen had to close and finish. And we knew that was going to be the scenario, but he didn't. He didn't finish. He didn't close the game. He made too many mistakes down the stretch, even getting them back into overtime, which I think was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game to watch. It kind of felt more of like a college game with Deshaun and Allen going at each other at the end, and there wasn't really any like crazy spectacular plays. It was just kind of like for like the whole fourth quarter and overtime when someone was supposed to make a big play. It was just kind of like the Texans fell into a win almost.
Yeah, it was one of those games where obviously either team could have came out the victor, but the Bills, they made so many mistakes at the end. And the offensive line for the Bills was just collapsing. It was like Houston, it made Houston's defense look like the best, and they are a good defense. Let's not take credit away from them, but they made Houston's defense look like just an incredible front.
There was the 1 3rd and 4th down play. The Bills were in like field goal range almost at the end of the regulation, and then 2 plays in a row, Allen got sacked for like negative 10 yards on both plays. It was like, seriously?
And then he tried to do the lateral and went out of bounds. Yeah. That was so bad.
That's something I would have done.
The other AFC game that was just an absolute mind breaker was the Titans beating the New England Patriots 20-13. Now this game was only 14-13, I believe, until the pick 6. So they were only really up by 1 point anyway.
Yeah.
So this was a game that went down to the wire. New England, again, always going to be the favorites in the postseason. That's what everybody thinks. People just know Tom Brady in the last decade, last 20 years, matter of fact. This has been the organization that people will stand by in the postseason. But every NFL analyst and even us as fans kind of saw this was a different New England team. They had lost to Miami the previous week, which put them in this wild card game nonetheless. And then going into this game, the most important thing that I looked at was going to be whether or not this team could get on the ground running. Tennessee's got a great defense. We've already seen that. Can New England beat a proper playoff team? The fact that they lost to Miami the week before, that's bad. That shows that this team either got too comfortable or they were not as good as we thought they were. And records may display how good teams are, but sometimes they don't. And I think in the postseason, that's where the records really come to fruition of us to see whether or not these teams are legit or not. This week in the divisionals, we're going to talk about here in just a second some of the teams that we've never seen at this position in a long time. And we have to make a decision here tonight or today, whenever you're watching this, what team we think is actually going to prove to be the better team, in these divisional rounds, moving to the championships. And in the wild card, it's the teams that just barely make it. So New England, the team that not only won their division, but got to a point where we thought we were going to see another championship year. There was a lot of question marks going into this game after they lost against Miami, and I think, Luke, this kind of answered all of them.
Yeah. The big stat for me that stuck out in the Titans-Pats game was, I think there was some stat they were talking about where if New England defense let up more than 120 rushing yards on the ground, then they're like a horrible losing record, which is one of their biggest faults, obviously, in the game. Derrick Henry ran for, I think, over 160 yards by himself. So right there put them in a bad position. And the New England defense was solid all year. Even the beginning of the year, they were, I just know from fantasy, they were like one of the top fantasy defenses the first 5-6 weeks. So it was kind of, I knew they were going to want to take away the pass to limit it to just the run, but I thought they'd have a better game plan on defense, especially with Belichick, to come out and at least limit Henry to less than 100 yards.
Yeah, and it was New England's defense this year, in my opinion, that's what got them some of the wins. They had some incredible offensive productions, first teams that did not have good defenses in that sense. But yeah, I think the defense for New England definitely should have stepped up. And again, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about if we think this could be the end for them in their dynasty. The Vikings, they continued to be sort of kind of the underdog favorites in the playoffs. I mean, Kirk Cousins, found a way to win in the postseason. And you just feel for the Saints. I mean, this team, it happened again, by the way. I didn't want to bring it up because could be a whole other topic of discussion. End of the game, potential pass interference call wasn't called. A lot of people argued that it wasn't a call. Luke, we'll hear your opinion in a second. But the Vikings did win 26-20 to move to the divisional round, and it's back to the drawing board once again for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I didn't think the foul was egregious enough to call in that situation, to be honest. I think we're all just biased a little bit because we're empathetic to the Saints last year. But all these teams that won, I think Vegas had as underdogs. So I think that's a huge storyline about the Vikings. Obviously, nobody saw them going into New Orleans, into the Dome, and beating the Saints at home. But I think the main storyline from this whole wild card round was I think every single underdog won, which was really surprising. So as Casey alluded to, with the games coming up, who's real and who's not, who just had a good week, who's legit. I don't know, but as for the Saints, obviously it's tough for them once again, for Drew Brees, who's nearing the end of his career, to go down again, especially in the first round. Brees and Brady might be on their last leg. It's tough to lose this early in the playoffs when you work so hard all year. So I don't know what's going to happen with either of them. I'm sure they'll come back for at least another year, but it's tough to see the Saints go down once again early in the playoffs, just because they're always a quality offense, fun to watch. Michael Thomas, they're fun to watch later in the playoffs, unless they're beating up on the Packers. But
and we'll talk about them in a second. But the Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles also, that was the final game. And like Luke mentioned, the Seahawks, however, the weirdest underdog of this, because they were way better than Philadelphia this year, much better record. They took care of business in Philly, 17-9. Don't really have to talk about that.
That was big about Wentz going out, though, in that game.
It's big. What's new?
Yeah, true.
I mean, yeah, and obviously the hit was, referred to be kind of a dirty hit. We'll see how that happens and if Clowney will play this week. I don't know if the NFL has made a rule on that yet. But, yeah, Philadelphia, I'm going to be honest this year. The winner of the NFC East wasn't going to do anything, and it proved to be true. That was a really boring game, to be honest with you. Divisional round, here we go. Tomorrow, Saturday, January 11th at 4:35, the Vikings at the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo and company had a fantastic year. But here we go again, Luke. Who do you trust more in this game? I mean, you have Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, who can remain, a dynamic team. They went into New Orleans and beat the Saints, a very, very good opponent. Now they're going to play the 49ers, who have a fantastic defense, an offense that I can get by. But here's exactly what we just talked about. Those are two names that we don't really see in the postseason together. And especially some of the players in there do not have a lot of experience.
Yeah, other than knowing, I think I looked a couple days ago, the line was 7. I think the spread was Niners favored by 7. But like you said, the only reason I'm going to go with the Niners is because Shanahan's a pretty good coach. He's had an extra week to prepare. Vikings were a little banged up they rested their guys last week of the regular season so that they could play last week to get the win. I'm scared that they left too much out on the field last game to bring it this game. But like you said, I mean, Kirk Cousins and Jimmy G are two unproven guys in the playoffs. So I think the Niners being at home with the extra week of preparation will win. I'm hoping for a good game, but it's going to be interesting to see, in this second round of the playoffs, how Jimmy G, Kirk Cousins, and the offenses play. I think the under is going to hit just because the defenses will probably show out and quarterbacks will be a little timid at the beginning. A little bit depends on the play calling, but I'll be curious to see how these guys perform.
Yeah, and the quarterback thing is interesting, right? You look at the postseason, you look at the divisional round right now. Look at all those teams. There are only 2 quarterbacks in the divisional round right now that actually have legitimate playoff experience, and they're playing in the same game.
Yeah.
So I bet you know who they are. So it is really, really interesting. But the young guys, the guys that are in there, have been, obviously Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson was even in one last year. Mahomes was even in one last year. Ryan Tannehill, another guy who's been in the league for a while, but he was on Miami for the longest time.
Yeah, so that means no playoffs.
So Russell Wilson and obviously Aaron Rodgers, who are playing against each other, are really the only two that have legitimate experience and even Super Bowl experience, if you want to take it to that level. And it's funny that they're playing each other. So it's almost like whoever comes out of that game, in my opinion, should be the favorite moving forward down the stretch of the playoffs. People would argue me, but it's true. That has a big factor. Vikings 49ers, if you're me and you're thinking like how I think, I will always go with the better defense. So I will take San Francisco in this game, which may surprise some of you out there. But I do think that even though Minnesota beat New Orleans, I think the 49ers defense is what's made them good. I mean, obviously, you're going to question Jimmy Garoppolo. You're going to question, the young guys on the offense. But in this sense, I've seen a lot of teams win Super Bowls based off defense, especially in this decade. You look at the Denver Broncos. You look at the Baltimore Ravens with Flacco. You look at the New York Giants. Both times they beat the Patriots. People give Eli Manning the credit, and trust me, I'm a huge Manning advocate. But you got to look at the players in the defense of those teams. Ray Lewis, Von Miller, Michael Strahan. Those were some really good defensive teams. And I think that's the reason I'm going to take this game with the 49ers.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Titans and Ravens is game 2. This is a little bit of a different game because to me you have a mind-blowing offense in Baltimore and you have a stunning defense in Tennessee. To me, Luke, this is the best game of this divisional round.
Yeah, like you said, I'm curious to see the scheme Vrabel comes out with for Tennessee's defense against Lamar Jackson. It's obviously been hard to solve Jackson and how he's been playing during the regular season.
No one's been able to figure him out.
And
not even the Patriots.
Yeah, and the Harbaugh and the coaching staff for the Ravens, I'm sure, with their week has been prepping something, coaching against tendencies and things of that nature. So I'm curious to see. I agree. I think it's going to be a really good game, good defense versus good offense. So I'm curious to see how aggressive the Ravens come out, if they run the option a lot, if they throw the ball deep, long shots right off the bat. It's going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be a fantastic game. You have two teams that beat the Patriots this season, one in the postseason, one in the regular season. One used defense, one used offense. It's going to be a good one. Texans and Chiefs on Sunday at 3:05. Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Here's the thing with this game for me. The Chiefs have been a dominant team. Patrick Mahomes has shown that. Patrick Mahomes, by the way, is one of those guys that you're not really sure what to expect as far as, what Patrick Mahomes you'll get. He's been injury-ridden this year a little bit. He's been a little bit inconsistent. But the Chiefs back in the playoffs versus a Houston team that barely beat the Buffalo Bills. This is a hard one to call. But if you're looking at it from an offensive perspective, you're probably going to go with Kansas City, especially because it's at Arrowhead.
Yeah, and Chiefs' defense hasn't been that good this year, and the Texans' offense has been inconsistent at times. So I think a big factor that's going to play a role in this game is Texans playing all their games in domes. And the Chiefs know how to play outside. They had that amazing game versus the Pats last year in the playoffs where they almost made it to the Super Bowl. But I think Mahomes at home in that climate is going to be too much for the Texans.
Yeah, I think so too. Seahawks and Packers, the game that Luke probably is the most interested in watching, mainly because of Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay. 6:40 on Sunday. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, the most playoff experience of any quarterback in the postseason remaining. This one is also a game of defense and offense. Seattle, again, offense I don't buy, but their defense this year has been better. Green Bay, I buy their offense. I don't buy their defense in this. So it's a battle of two swords, and I think Green Bay in the long run should find a way to win at Lambeau in the postseason. They've struggled over the last decade, and you know that. But Seattle, it's going to be tough for them to come back this week and play a much, much better team than Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I'm a little iffy on this is like the first year with our offense. I'll disagree with you a little bit that I'm a little more confident in our defense than our offense. Our defense is a little inexperienced, but I think against the Seahawks offense, we'll have a better chance. They'll play better than Rodgers in the offense will. Our offense has been really off the whole year. It's been Rodgers missing easy throws, a lot of checkdowns like usual, not throwing the ball away as much, but the receivers seen, like Devontae Adams, who missed a lot of games this year, is the only one who's really been producing from the wide receiver position the whole year. And guys like MVS and the supporting crew, Allison fumbles it every time he touches the ball in open space. It's going to be interesting. I against the Seattle defense, I think this is going to be another low-scoring game. I have a lot of family going to the game. It's going to be 20 and freezing cold, so that's in the Packers' favor. But Seattle knows how to play in the cold. It gets rainy and cold up in Seattle, but not snowy and 20. So
it's going to be definitely one of the most close games in the postseason. I think this is going to be the closest one. I think a lot of the other ones will have some clear victors in the second half going into the third and fourth quarter, to be honest. Moving to topic number 2, kind of staying on NFL, though. There have been a few head coaching changes in the NFL. We're going to briefly talk about them. Jason Garrett, obviously we've known, has been out in Dallas ever since they had their failure. Mike McCarthy, the former Packers head coach, is headed to Dallas. And this is kind of scary as a Giants fan because, honestly, I think they finally found a coach that can run that offense and defense the right way.
Yeah, I'm a little biased to McCarthy and how things ended in Green Bay. It's kind of hard for me to judge how much McCarthy was involved at what points because Rodgers came more and more powerful over time, and they had some disagreements in play calling and things of that nature. So I don't really know how much Rodgers was calling and how much McCarthy was calling, but I think it's a good spot for him in Dallas. He gets along with most people pretty well. Aaron Rodgers is hard to get along with for anybody, but I think McCarthy in that system with Jerry Jones and just getting along with all the personnel, and it's more kind of I don't want to say lax environment because their fan base is nuts and they have a huge fan base always on national TV and stuff like that. But to me, it doesn't feel like the Cowboys culture right now is like the Browns or the Niners where everyone's like going nuts about the team. It's just kind of been like flat heartbeat for a few years now. So I think that's more on McCarthy's wavelength, and I think he'll do relatively well there. I don't know if he's going to take Dak Prescott to the next level and they'll start winning playoff games.
Well, yeah, it's weird. It's like high confidence, low expectations, and in those kind of cancel out each other. But it's true. Like the fans, the players, the coaching staff, Jerry Jones, they have high confidence in everybody. They trust and believe in everybody, but they don't have expectations. And they're ready to drop the bomb whenever and, fire a coach, drop a player, release somebody, do this. So they're in that it's kind of a very delicate stage. And if Mike McCarthy turns the Cowboys around, which, we thought that was going to happen every year, the Cowboys always come back into the season thinking that they're going to be turning it around and be the best team. And for the first 5 games this year, they were. And then after that, they weren't. So they kind of went back and forth, and that's going to be their issue, and Mike McCarthy's got to solve that.
Yeah, they're really focused on – Jones is really focused on culture more than it seems. They have these unrealistic goals of winning the Super Bowl every year, which just comes along with the franchise. But I think they've really focused more on culture.
Well, that's the confidence.
They focus more on culture than – I don't want to say doing what it takes to win. It's just a weird situation there. They never can stay healthy or put it together.
Ron Rivera, the former Panthers coach, is headed to Washington, which will be really interesting. Hopefully he can try to get some players out there. I think that's probably been Washington's biggest issue. They just can't recruit play. Nobody wants to go play for them.
Yeah.
It's not an organization that's really up there. And also in the NFC East, the Giants fired, oh my God, I forget his name already. I don't even
Schumer.
Dude, what a guy, too, because he literally said in the last press conference when they won, did they win the last game of the year? I think they did. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. In the last press conference, they asked him, because they know his job's on the line, they said, how do you think you've fared with New York over your tenure, whatever it was, 2-3 years? I think it was only 2 years. And he said, I think I've turned this team, better. I think we've gotten, better players. I think we've moved around. I think we've improved in this area, that area, and I think we have a bright future. And I think it's, it's because of all the tactics that I've applied. Less than 10 hours, he got fired. So obviously he didn't have a good, adjudication of how they're playing. The Giants, meanwhile, they've been trying to hire a Patriots coach forever. And it's almost like hiring this guy, Joe Judge, the wide receivers coach of the Pats. It was a last-second effort to get whatever Patriots coach wanted to come coach the Giants, come coach us because we know how successful they've been. The real guy they wanted was Josh McDaniels, but he just doesn't have any intention of leaving the Patriots. So they couldn't get him, so they go for Joe Judge. People a lot were saying that Matt Rule from Baylor was going to go to the Giants, but they didn't even give him an interview because when Joe Judge said he would join a member of the Patriots, I'm telling you, it's a thing, they hired him as soon as possible. I could go into this all day long, and probably so can Luke, but we're going to minimize it for you. My take on this is basically this. Well, basically that, honestly. The Giants hired him is because he's a Patriots coach.
Yeah.
There's no other reason. Do I think he's going to be a good fit? Only time will tell. Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, two of the greatest coaches in football history, couldn't stop raving about this guy. They really do like him, and I think that that's a good sign. It's just a matter of, can a wide receivers coach talk to the quarterback and the defense?
Yeah.
Can he talk to the special teams? Can he connect with every single player on that team? Now, the only people to ask would be players on the Patriots. To go up to a defensive player or go up Tom Brady. Well, Tom Brady they probably work with the quarterbacks. But to go up to the defensive and special teams guys and go, what's your relationship with Joe Judge? Is it good? Is it bad? How do you feel about him? And that's the only way we're going to find out. So,
yeah.
I'll let you,
I told you a little bit. I was obviously they picked him because he's from the Belichick coaching tree, and
of course
that means something that they endorse him, Belichick and Saban. I'm just nervous, kind of like you said, on managing a team and being looked up to as an authority figure, given the respect that he deserves as coming as a wide receivers coach to the head of the football giants. I mean, that's a big jump even for someone in Belichick's coaching tree. I don't know, like just feeling for you in the Giants franchise post Eli winning Super Bowls era. I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously I don't know much about the guy, but just from what I know on paper, I'm kind of nervous for him. Obviously situations like this have worked out, far more haven't, but you got to give the guy a chance. Like you said, they're going with somebody from a system that they like and want to emulate. So this is a step forward in terms of getting rid of Schumer and looking for a better solution out there for the franchise.
Doug Peterson is now the only head coach in the NFC to East to remain. And matter of fact, he is now the longest tenured with Garrett out on the Cowboys. Well, Matt Rule didn't even get an interview from the Giants, but luckily Carolina picked him up as soon as possible. They actually even had a press conference with him already. I mean, this guy, we know how excited he was as a coach at Baylor. To get an opportunity in the NFL is what any coach wants. Some work out, some don't. Look at Nick Saban, who went back, and now he's one of the greatest college coaches of all time. This is a guy who really loves his job. Matt Rule is a huge football guy. He helped Baylor have a phenomenal season despite the bowl loss. They were still an incredible team this year. And Matt Rule is going to do well with the Panthers. Again, just another team that needs to build in fluctuation with players and with the organization. They've had a lot of controversy in the front office there. Our final topic in number 2, Bill Belichick is probably the weirdest coach of NFL history, but is probably one of the greatest as well. So we never really know what he's thinking. Press conferences won't tell you anything besides what color sweatshirt he's wearing. Sources say he may leave the Patriots and or retire. We don't know what that means. We don't know if these sources have a definition of that. But Belichick could be done. And after losing to the Titans in a heartbreaking way, he's not like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, he doesn't have an Instagram posting videos of lions attacking little deers or whatever. He doesn't have hype videos. Bill Belichick is a completely separate person to Tom Brady. He likes to win. He does win. We know that. He loves football. He knows so much about football. But he's also one of those guys that you look at, and at a certain point, he will say, I can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah.
So what do we take by this? Do we take it with a grain of salt, or do we kind of really dissect this and saying this actually really could be a possibility through this offseason?
Yeah, I think the three parties you got to look at is Kraft, Brady, and Belichick. I think we've seen with Jimmy G getting shipped out to the Niners with Kraft picking Brady. A lot of people thought that was a retaliation by Belichick getting rid of Jimmy G. I don't really know if Kraft sides with Belichick and goes long-term picture because he doesn't want to compromise his relationship with Brady. It's going to be interesting. I think he has to pick a side because Belichick and Brady aren't on the same side. They're not on the same page. Brady wants to play as long as possible from what we know. Belichick wants to win. He's always thinking long term for the Patriots as a franchise. So if Belichick's feeling more and more not threatened, but having less and less say in Kraft and the organization, he like you said, just probably won't put up with it and either move on and never coach again, or go prove the Patriots franchise wrong by taking over another franchise. It's going to be interesting to see how much longer does Tom Brady play. Does Tom Brady go to a team like the Bears or the Browns with McDaniels if there's a split up with Belichick? I think there's a lot out there. I think Belichick, my gut feeling is that Kraft is going to side with Brady. Brady will be back on the Pats on a 1-year contract, and Belichick's going to be done coaching. But the alternative is Brady's out, Belichick stays. I don't think for a super long time because things have already happened between him and Kraft. But it'll be interesting to see the three parties, Kraft, Belichick, and Brady, what happens between them.
Yeah, and that's Luke brings up 3 different possibilities or 4. I mean, that was a lot of different chances that could happen between the Browns, Bears, and Brady staying, him leaving, Brady stay. So there's a lot that you can unpack with this, and it is interesting. So please keep your eye on Belichick and the situation there. Before we get to topic 3, we'd just like to remind you that Just a Minute Sports is brought to you by Enigmatic Entertainment, producing the next generation of fashion, music, film, and entertainment media. On social media at Enigmatic on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, check out their website for the latest news on featured artists, events, and apparel at engmtc.co or any social media platform. I'm wearing their shirt today from the summer line that they came out with, and there's plenty more where that came from. Final topic of the day, probably going to be my most favorite one. Again, it's just going to be about five minutes or so. Again, that's where all our topics are. We're already 2 minutes over what I usually want it to be at 30 minutes, which is the new show. But like I said, we kind of just go and roll with it. We don't really have a time here, which I love. National Championship is this Monday, the January 13th at 8 p.m. on ESPN. College Football National Championship presented by AT&T. Number 3, Clemson versus number 1, LSU. Both teams are 14-0. LSU is favored by 6 points. The over-under is just under 70 at 69.5. Weirdest line I've actually ever seen. Mercedes-Benz Superdome in NOLA is the setting. You have Trevor Lawrence, a young guy who's got probably a year left in him before he heads to the NFL. And you got a guy in Joe Burrow who should go straight to the NFL right after the season, the Heisman winner himself. The last time these teams played, and we won't get into this too much, but we'll talk about the actual game itself. The last time these teams played, LSU played Clemson in 2012. They played in 2012 and 1996 as well, but the 2012 one we're a little bit more interested in. It's a little bit more recent. Number 14, Clemson upset number 8, LSU, 25-24 on a field goal as time expired. That means that football went through the field goal at zeros. Some notables during this game: Odell Beckham was a wide receiver, 3 receptions, 40 yards for him. His buddy on the Cleveland Browns, Jarvis Landry, 4 receptions, 37 yards, and a touchdown. One of the greatest wide receivers in the league right now, in my opinion, both in the playoffs as well with Houston. DeAndre Hopkins for Clemson had 13 receptions, 191 yards for DeAndre Hopkins. And then some just other players to mention. Jeremy Hill, who used to play for the Bengals, now a free agent, 12 carries, 124 yards. His last team was actually the Patriots before getting released. Taj Boyd was the quarterback for Clemson. He had 2 touchdowns in that game.
50 passes.
50 passes, of course. I mean, that's just a typical Clemson passing scheme. And then Zach Mettenberger was the quarterback for LSU. His last team was the Raiders, just like Taj Boyd. Both players, are out of a job. So, the recent one, the one that's happening this Monday, College Football Playoff National Championship, in this new era of the playoffs, is this a game that Clemson has to try to win? Or is this LSU's kind of game to lose?
I'm really excited. One, because it's the first time I think in the playoffs where we haven't had
Alabama
crazy staunch defense like Alabama, like those Alabama LSU games that were like 9-6. Those were so boring to watch.
The score I think is going to run up in this game.
Yeah, I mean you can see that from the over/under. I'm just excited. It's going to be an exciting game. I hope Clemson. I think LSU's got a little. I don't know. It's such a good matchup. I think it's going to be fun to watch both quarterbacks go at it. Joe Burrow throwing for crazy numbers. Trevor Lawrence mixing in some read option running with his pass. Both these coaches have proven to be really, really, really good coaches who have respect to their guys. They come up with good game plans. Dabo's obviously proven himself in the playoff format, being there, I think, to the Final Four every year since it started in 2014. And Coach O, everyone loves that guy down on the Bayou. He's started something really cool. Burrow obviously is a great leader. So I'm hoping for a high-scoring shootout that'll be fun to watch. That's why I'm so pumped for this game. I think that the game being in New Orleans gives LSU a slight advantage, even though, Clemson doesn't fear anything or anybody. But no. I think LSU's the magic they have with Burrow and his arm and being in New Orleans, it's going to be an insane atmosphere. I think LSU is going to come out on top, but it's going to be an amazing game.
I do too. I think this is Joe Burrow's year, and I think next year is Trevor Lawrence's year.
Yeah.
I think that's how I want to put it. The most simple way is to say that this year's Joe Burrow, next year's Trevor Lawrence. LSU's going to take it this year. LSU won't be the same next year. They'll be good. They could still be top 4. Matter of fact, they could still be the number 1 team in the nation next year. But this was Joe Burrow's year. This is LSU's year. I think I have the Tigers winning this game by at least 10 points. Yeah. And I think I'm going to take the over in this game for sure, which is a bold move almost at 70 points, which means one team's got to score 30, the other's got to score 40. But LSU had 49 points in the first half last week. So yeah. I don't think it's impossible. They probably would have hit the over in the first half in that game. So it is time for the rundown. Casey, if you're editing this, play the music right now. Thank you. Number 1, 30 seconds on each topic. That means got to pull out the trusty phone. And
it's like the good old days.
The good old days. Remember they used to do that? I loved doing that on the radio. People would hear that chime in the background. It's a little bit louder now. All right, 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Starts now. Russell Westbrook continues to play dominant throughout this postseason. Willing the Houston Rockets make it? They probably will. Yes or no?
Yeah, he'll continue to play well. I don't know. It's going to be the same thing in the past where does he hold the ball in his hands too much? I don't know.
And he can't anymore. I mean, you have James Harden. You have a really good offensive front with the Houston Rockets. He really doesn't have a choice anymore. He kind of has to play with the team. When Kevin Durant and James Harden left OKC, go nuts with it. Triple-doubles galore. But now it's a little different, and it has to be from time to time. Yesterday, a fan threw a beer on the court at Kemba Walker.
Was that Votto?
Or after Kemba Walker was ejected. It could have been Votto. But it was in Boston, so are we that surprised?
Yeah, true.
Not surprised. Kemba Walker was ejected from this game. A lot of ejections have been happening. Matter of fact, the ejection the other day with Jimmy Butler and the player on the Pacers, I forget his name, TJ Warren, I think it was. That was funny.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler had an offensive foul, and then the guy ran up on him and got ejected.
I'm all for
awesome.
that stuff.
It's fun. It's fun in basketball, honestly. Who will win the MVP this upcoming year in the MLB?
I think Mike Trout's going to solidify himself as one of the greatest. He's going to go down as maybe close to the greatest baseball player of all time. His stats are insane. So I think he's going to follow up with another great year.
With Anthony Rendon and the Angels, you think that's going to be a good
yeah.
For me, the MVP in 2020 will be... I guess I'll go Pete Alonso. I mean, he could have won it last year. I had to bring that up with Luke here. He knows that he's not the best with picking that stuff. The Patriots losing to the Titans was kind of a shock to the entire world because this was the first time that we've seen them lose to a team that people really didn't expect would have a chance to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs, and they beat arguably the most favorable team in the postseason. Is the Patriots dynasty done?
As we knew it, yes. In terms of the Super Bowls every year, yeah, it's done.
I agree. I think that this is, Tom Brady only has years left. Within the next 5 years, he will be done, and so will Belichick. So that'll be something to look for. Staying on the dynasty topic, in this decade, now that it ended, we're starting a new one. Who had a better dynasty? The Patriots, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, and you got to think back with Kobe, or the San Francisco Giants? That's tough.
You got to go Patriots. Well,
in this decade, though.
Yeah. I guess the Warriors then.
I'm going to go with the Warriors.
Yeah.
I would say it was either the Warriors or the Giants because the Giants started in 10. They
won like every other year.
Every other year after that. So it was pretty good. But the Warriors, they did it multiple times. And they did it faster than any other team.
Yeah.
Your favorite bowl game in this NCAA postseason was?
The last Clemson game.
The
Who they play?
college football playoffs?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not Oklahoma. Who was the other team? Oh my God, this is really bad. It was Clemson.
Oh my.
Oklahoma, LSU. Wow. We are dead silent right now.
Ohio State.
There
it is.
Oh, because they were bad this year. That's not.
That was a fun game to watch, though.
Can Tiger Woods win another major?
Yeah, I think he could.
I think he can too. I think he's got a good chance this weekend. What's this weekend? You should know.
This weekend's the Sony Open in
That's
Hawaii.
what it was. Yeah, that's not.
I don't know if he'll win. I don't even think he's playing.
Is that a major?
No. First major is the Masters,
which is coming up soon. Oh God, I'm so excited for that. The Masters, by the way, we talk about that a lot here on Just a Minute Sports. So when we get to that point with the Masters, it's going to be
one of the greatest weeks in sports culture is Masters Week.
Has to be. The 2020 NBA champion will be who? And this is tough because the West is good this year.
Yeah. I think it'll be awesome to see the Clippers and Lakers play in the Western Conference Finals, and then the Bucks playing the Sixers. I think the Bucks will win in 7 versus the Sixers, and LeBron will will his team to one last finals at his age. So for Lakers Bucks, I think I just took up all the time, but I think the Bucks are going to actually do it this year. They look more consistent than they've been.
Just letting the horn play out. Just know you ran.
Just do it.
My champion is the Lakers if they stay healthy. So that was it. Casey, switch to music now. From the rundown to MVP coach and team of the week. Thank you. Team of the week for you, Luke. Who is it? Should I have started?
Yeah, you should.
I'll start. Utah Jazz. They've won 7 straight games. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They're 5th in the West, and they are climbing up very, very quickly.
I think team of the week's got to be the Titans. Derrick Henry running for an absurd amount of yards going into Gillette and beating the Pats at home to maybe end the Belichick-Brady era. It's that's a big accomplishment.
My coach of the week is Bill O'Brien. He stayed calm throughout the entire Houston Texans win against Buffalo, even going into overtime. They advanced to the divisional round. He's one of those coaches that does not get enough respect of keeping a team consistently in the postseason in the last 5 years since he's taken Rome at Houston.
I got to go with Dabo, just the way he gets his team ready to play and wills Clemson to win a game like the last game they had against Ohio State. It's cool to see someone in that position of leadership doing it the right way and getting his team to put everything out there.
My MVP of the week is the entire Tennessee defense, just because all of them played just well enough to stop Tom Brady in an offense that you would think could not go without scoring multiple touchdowns in a game, let alone a second half being dry completely.
Yeah. My MVP of the week's got to be who played well in the NBA this week.
The Lakers. They won all 3 games.
I hate the Lakers.
Well, I gave you a good stat.
I'll go MVP of the week is, Giannis is averaging 30, 12, and 6, and Kareem averaged like 30, 16, and 6. So he's
pretty close.
And they're both in their age 25 season. So I don't know. I haven't been paying. I watched the game last night, but I haven't been paying attention the whole week just because the Bucks roll over everybody. But Giannis is got to be my MVP of the week.
That's a go. He's playing well. So
yeah.
And that does it for our show today. Luke, thank you for joining me today.
Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited what you got going here.
Of course. Make sure to go check him out for Clear and all his designs on his website. Like I said, we're going to put a description in the link below. Or a link in the description below. I said that backwards. And stay tuned for our next coffee talk, which will be uploaded next Wednesday. Who's on it? I don't know. I got 10 people ringing my phone saying they want to do it. So this show,
Mr. Popular.
I know. Well, the coffee talk took. I told you I had to find something that was going to make.
Is Votto ever coming back?
I'm sure he's gonna. He wants to do one with my roommates, with Tyler and Blake, because
that's going to be a madhouse.
I know. Well, that's what, and you know what? I'm okay with that. And then
everyone's going to.
Well, I don't even think I'm going to do the show. I think it's just
let them talk.
Yeah, it's Votto's going to be like, hey, I'm Casey. I'm Anthony Travato, Just Man Sports. I'm filling in for Casey today. Like,
no, he's going to pretend he's you and be like, hey, this is Casey Wright, and just completely botch the whole thing.
And then I walk in and he'll be like, well, you're not even going to talk in the show anyway, because it'll just be the three of us. But yeah, so make sure to check that. Make sure to go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Just a Man in Sports. Also, go subscribe to myself. It says Casey Wright on YouTube. Check out all our other videos. And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to go check us out also on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can also listen to the to the podcast on there. And anything else? Oh, yeah. And make sure to go to Enigmatic Entertainment on their social media and check out their new concert coming up on January 31st. Their new show. They're going to have 2 shows within 2 weeks, actually. So keep an eye out for that. From Luke and myself, Casey Wright, saying so long, everybody. Until next time, I'm Casey Wright. This is Just a Man in Sports.